Alright. We got 40 minutes. There's a fair amount of stuff resting on these last two Bad Batch kits, in my opinion. Some big questions about power budget, who's allowed to wield it, new batch versus old batch. Because there are some very fucking good old Bad Batch characters, and Fugitive Omega Lead is also very, very good. But, like, there's a war at the heart of how good Fugitive Omega is, and the slots are tight. Batcher doesn't really earn the slot unless he's teeing up synergy on other people that we haven't seen yet. And Hunter, I am not entirely sold on. But again, might be setting up some stuff that we haven't seen yet for a Wrecker or Crosshair. So yeah, I assume that Wrecker... I think Hunter is very, very curious in what Crosshair has going on. I don't think Wrecker's going to answer too many questions. He's going to answer more questions than me about Fugitive Omega, so... Alright, it's not letting me get this set up outside of it. Let me just do this real quick outside of studio mode. What's the best way to do this? Go down. Some shit like that. What animal is Batcher? It's like a rhino dog, I guess. Alright. Time for the new batch. Dispels buffs from a single enemy using his basic. Still really wondering if there's going to be a mass assist coming in a Crosshair or something. Provides Terminator manipulation throughout his kit. Okay. So if I'm calling some balls here, I had a feeling that one of two things was going to happen with Wrecker before we saw him. A, I thought there was a world where he just wasn't going to be a tank, which that ended up being true. He's a fucking tank. Possibility B, CG is going to design him to be the tank, and his stuff will be good enough that it will turn out that he's better off if you don't make him be the tankiest person in the squad. So that's kind of the lens that I'm going to be looking at this through. And this would be a pretty good sounding start to that theory, right? Okay, you're going to give me Terminator manipulation on a guy who could just print bonus turns? Potentially? Alright, we'll see how that goes. Them as mercenaries, so let's just make them mercenaries, sure. Okay, so it's technically season 3, but based on 2. Sure. Is Omicron? Isn't it to be Omicron? Don't care. Alright, I have skimmed a bit of this. And the stuff that I skimmed so far made me quite happy. Oh, wait, he pre-taunts. Well, that's just a pre-taunt unconditional. Old record, you had to have all 5 Bad Batch. Wait. Okay, so immediately it feels like CG is trying to guarantee that he ends up the tankiest, or at least if you didn't, you would have 2 out. Blanket 75% tenacity, I'm obviously very happy to see. This is a team that is already critically immune on 4 of their members. And you're giving me 75% tenacity to boot baseline? Well, it's like, what the fuck even is their, like, base stats? Yeah, Omega's literally fucking 200% tenacity base. Like, yeah, that'll do it. That helps. Yeah, he's, like, not too far off either. So this is a team that is already operating with a lot of healing, critically immune, and tenacity. And you mean to tell me, and it's printing bonus turns like crazy, and you mean to tell me that this team doesn't at least, like, sound like it might have some defense potential? And everyone's like, oh, I don't care about Bad Batch. Bitch, I don't either. I care about good kits. What are we talking about here? At the start of each encounter, record taunts for 2 turns. Whenever an enemy attacks out of turn, Bad Batch allies recover 5% health and protection. We saw a much more overtuned version of this with, like, Grey Mother's Chrono and stuff like that. I think this is a very good effect. Obviously, 5% is a much, much smaller version of it, but with how... This is what I've been talking about with Hunter and Batcher, right? This is a squad where if you can heal your tank back to full health, that means you potentially get another set of 4 bonus turns. This clause is what they are looking for. This clause is directly in conversation with Fugitive Omega to lead. Batcher wasn't talking about that shit. Hunter isn't talking about that shit. Hunter has like recover 7% health when you apply a mark, but like, what the fuck are we even... No. Echo, old Echo and old Tech can do so much more the fuck than this. So I should also mention, if we do end up in a spot where like Hunter gets benched, Batcher gets benched, and we're looking at like old Echo plus Tech, the old Bad Batch are pretty happy to have a clone trooper to be able to work with in some ways. That also puts an interesting context for today on New Wrecker versus Old Wrecker, right? Because New Wrecker's not a clone trooper, so he loses some synergies with the old batch. But then we got these other bonuses to compare it to, so I don't think it's set in stone whether we're going to use new or old. We'll have to see what the rest of the kit has. Whenever Bad Batch allies are inflicted with healing immunity, they dispel it, recover 25% health and protection, healing, and anti-healing, and gain defense up for 2 turns. Whenever an enemy gains 50% or more bonus turn meter before a Bad Batch ally takes a turn, all Bad Batch allies gain 15%. So this is in conversation with Amidala, obviously. Which, if you think about it, like Fugitive Omega, losing health is also technically like in conversation with Padawan Obi-Wan to some degree. That, cutesy whatever, but I'm not too fussed about that. Sure, you get 50% turn meter against Queen Amidala. I'm sure there are probably other examples I'm not thinking of. It's technically right below the BB-8 threshold, but like, droids still have never really been a thing to care about. I guess this is also talking about... This is talking about Bane. This is talking about Bane. This is talking about Stap. Okay. Weird. When another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with captive, the cooldown of improvised weapon is reset and Wrecker gains taunt for 2 turns. This is where things get weird to me of like, okay, so we are talking about Wrecker tank, but we're not, or this is like if he gets rescued then someone else doesn't, but that assumes a lot. Because, like, typically you would imagine that unless an Omega... The thing you need to know, if you haven't played with a Fugitive Omega that much, this move reshuffles the lock taunts. And so actually, like, if everyone remembers the one fight I did against Great Mother, so I was just kind of mashing buttons, and she ended up being the bulkiest, and I pushed her out of stealth. That she kept on getting buff immunity, and so I was only getting 3 people rolling bonus turns. If I'm overthinking things here and trying to read some tea leaves, I think history will prove itself that this button is not a button that you press all that often. Sorry, it's a little bit cut off, but our way out, right? The one that rerolls stealth. So, like, this feels like CG is trying to rule set on defense or something. Because I assume the fact, like, if he pre-taunts, even if he's got the lock stealth, I imagine that means that he's going to get ripped out of it. When other Bad Batch allies afflicted with captive, the cooldown of improvised weapon is reset and Wrecker gains taunt for 2 turns. Or maybe it means that it's only a taunt for 2 turns, right? Maybe you could try to, like, make him squishy and he's just, like, taunt on, get stealth, he's out of... Huh. Yeah, reset cooldown on a special gain 2 more turns of taunts, which can't be dispelled, which is interesting. While another Bad Batch ally is afflicted with captive, he has 25% bulk, sure. On TB, don't care. The start of battle gains 1 stack of Soldier of Fortune for each relic amp level he has. Whenever a Bad Batch or Mercenary ally is critically hit, gains 3 stacks of Soldier of Fortune. That is way better than Hunter had. He's afflicted with a debuff, he loses 5 stacks. Oh, well, that's sharp. Start of the turn, each Mercenary ally gains 5% defense and 1% tenacity for each stack of Soldier of Fortune. That feels more offense coded. That feels kind of more like Gungans. So we have this kind of weird, funky thing where it's like, okay, it's defense stacking if he's just like getting crits jammed against them. But yeah, the whole defense thing, obviously, you could just get bottomed out back to 0 Soldier of Fortune very fucking quick. This is a way better mercenary passive than Hunter had. Yeah, this is so nothing. This will actually matter within the Bad Batch squad. That's cool. Alright, that's actually like not shabby. I'm obviously going to try to build for him for tenacity, and obviously a lot of teams have tenacity down nowadays or unresistable shit that will just matter anyway, but that will be very good to keep in mind for some matchups, to be sure. But also, don't you need to take a turn to cash in the stacks? At the start of their turn. Yeah. So again, we're kind of stuck in this weird state where it feels like he would be happier taking bonus turns than not. Magic Kiss so bad I should have just been a summon. I am not convinced that we have the full picture on Batcher yet. Right, he's got call assist shit that we haven't seen yet. And like there could be shit on Crosshair Unique that makes Batcher's kit better, to be sure. We'll see. Once I see the full team, I'll do final judgment on them. Alright, improvised weapon, cooldown of 6. Deal physical damage and stagger all enemies for 2 turns, resistible, dispel all debuffs on Bad Batch allies. If defense down, speed down, or tenacity down were dispelled, they gain the opposite version of that debuff for 2 turns. That's cool. Each time this ability is used, Record gains 25% of bulk and defense until the end of battle. I'll have to think this through. Right, like the AoE stagger, if you could get Fugitive Omega, if you could get him in stealth with Fugitive Omega, and just have him rolling bonus turns, you would be so fucking happy. Also, this is an AoE, and so far, this is, I believe, the only AoE we have here. So the weird thing that's happening, Crosshair must have an AoE at some point then. Because if you use this at any point after the initial turn setup, you just lose your target practice. Crosshair must have some sort of like AoE follow-up, right? But literally, this is an AoE stagger. There's no fucking way that Crosshair won't have some AoE way to follow up on it. So yeah, remains to be seen. I guess remains to be seen on his base speed as well. Special 1, Colossal Smash. Inflict disarm for 2 turns or until he's defeated and removed from other enemies which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted. Disarm is a pretty good debuff as I recall. Is it just like straight up half damage? If the target enemy was already disarmed, this ability deals 50% more damage. Kinda cool. If Wrecker has more than 30 stacks of Soldier of Fortune, he and the weakest of the Bad Batch ally gave 50% TM. Taunt for 2 turns. AoE stagger is good. Disarm is good. Aspects of the unique are good, is how I'm feeling so far. I'm trying to think if there's any way that we can abuse this, though. We can cheat shit out. Dispel buffs the target enemy and deal physical damage to them twice during record. Deal physical damage twice. There's gotta be a fucking mass assist coming on Crosshair, man. Like, obviously, doing damage twice is in conversation with, like, target practice generation as well as, like, Hunter unique. During Record's turn, remove 5% turn meter for each buff dispelled from the target enemy. All the Bad Batch allies gain 10% TM. That's, like, pretty high impact, actually. Obviously, it's resistible, but, like... I mean, worst case scenario, we've already got so much free tenacity that you could always just go for potency in the mods. So the weird thing that's happening here is OG Wrecker has that clause that makes him more of an immediate meat slab that I think, if we're comparing kits right now, yeah, he just has plus 80% health and protection to start. This might end up being a toolkit situation. Which is, like, probably the coldest fucking take imaginable for where we end up with, like, new batch versus old batch. But... right, we've got toolset and utility here that OG Record doesn't offer, but OG Record just gives you a fatter chunk of metal to sit behind and try to abuse. I don't think it's actually clear who is favored right now. I think this really is just going to come down to Crosshair. Because the problem is... so Crosshair, I would imagine, is going to be an attacker. And right now, Hunter Mercenary, this ability... like, he has this bit. So if we assume that Hunter Mercenary is going to be on the team, which is not set in stone, but if he is... call all Bad Batch attacker allies to assists. And then basic. All attacker allies gain buffs. Gain offense. Call a random Bad Batch attacker ally to assists. Now, as far as I'm aware, unless it just turns out that, like, yeah, our Batcher with good damage mods is just, like, fucking sick, and I'm just not aware. The thing this screams to me is we will deliberately strip Batcher out of the squad. Probably look at someone like Echo. Or possibly Hunter, depending on how things go. But Hunter's also an attacker. But yeah, if it turns out that Crosshair is sick, then stripping your team down to one attacker to get consistent RNG on the basic makes so much sense to me. Oh, this picture Crosshair's a single target damage being a sniper. Yeah, like, I think if you think of season 1, you really think about the Ricochet shit. That was, like, what I always imagined he would get if we ever got him. But that was season 1 version, where I don't... unless they're just like, hey, this is our one version of playable Crosshair, we wanted to see it included, so we're gonna do it. Or they could do something where, like, he's frail and hurt and battle damage to start, but tries to set up his crazy Ricochet shots as a payoff. But again, if we think about the flow of the fight, right, this shit you're going to be doing immediately. And as of right now, Future Omega literally has no way to damage anything except for with her basic. Batcher single target, Hunter single target. Wrecker can do it himself again, I guess, but literally that's the only non-OG batch way to do it. I would be fucking shocked if Crosshair was not the follow-up here. Maybe he even fucking ricochets to staggers for all we know, right? It could literally be that simple. Yeah, this is It's not what I expected, but it's actually like really not bad for what the role is looking for. Again, like major questions for base stats, major questions for like the raw sheer bulk comparison. But again, like the anti-heal block, the bonus tenacity, the anti-assist regen, there's a lot to like here. This definitely feels more in conversation with defense shit, unless it just turns out that the new batch is a little bit too hard for AI to play, and that the OG clone troopers can just kind of refill on health a little bit more consistently. Would be a reason, I guess. And this is so like. Is there anyone else that this impacts aside from like Amidala, Bane, and Stap? Who am I blanking on? Han, I guess? If we try to tea leaf read, after we said, oh yeah, sorry, I wasn't. I haven't been able to see chat for my current setup. Afra's just 100% TM data, right? Not bonus TM. I don't know if that distinction matters. I'm blanking. Item is sure. I'm not. I don't want to set myself up for disappointment if this team doesn't end up being defense viable, but this feels like defense table setting to some degree. Right. I'm not sold, obviously, right? Like, certainly not entirely sold on Batcher, and still kind of a question mark on not Crosser, Hunter. But this is more table setting defensively. Also, thank God we finally have a 2 separate TB Omicron squad. I think Queen, Hondo, Bane, Han. I guess the weird thing is, this is just judging before a Bad Batch ally takes a turn, so it doesn't even just have to be start of battle. Right? Couldn't this also literally just be like, hey, someone is trying to use General Skywalker against you and a Rex uses form up? Which, like, didn't we literally use gas against New Bad Batch yesterday? And it was, like, pretty okay. That's probably a little bit copy, but it's flexible in that way that it doesn't have to just be, like, bonus turn at match start type shit. So weird. I don't know. The one thing I wasn't expecting for today, but maybe should have been expecting, is the actual just hard taunts. This faction had so it feels like CG knew what I was like. People like me were gonna try to do and like trying to get out of it, because the 4 locked stealths act already as a taunt. So there's no reason to keep putting taunts in the squad unless CG is trying to be like, no, just fucking stop, just fucking chill. Right. This feels very targeted. But also, hey, it's a, like, let's say you don't have new batch or don't plan to use them. Yeah, gives himself 75% tenacity and pre-taunts. Like, he actually might not be that bad as a plug-and-play tank. Like, these rules just work for him. He doesn't need other people to be here. This is like, it's not quite as independent as like L3 Watt. but yeah, his retaunt alone is not that good if we're just talking single slot, but it's still a pre-taunt. Alright, well, it feels like CG knew that perverts like me existed and tried to get ahead of me, so fair play to them on that, I say, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna try still. Control F taunt. So, pre-taunt, whenever another ally gains captive, and this taunt isn't dispellable, so even if I was trying to play for, like, enemies dispelling it, it would still not really work. And then special one taunt for 2 turns dispellable. Plug and play in Merc specifically. Eh. I really doubt it. I Each mercenary gains 5% defense. I mean, that's not nothing, I guess. I'm never gonna say never to that. It's worth keeping in the back of your head, but I feel like the synergy is still a lot lower than, like, Hondo, Canderous, Dadbod, those types of characters are talking about, that you know, is it funny to be like, oh man, 200 to 250% defense Balin? Sure. But the ways that I'm killing Balin right now tend to be more like Deathmark at the moment with Gungans. Which, granted, sometimes I have had to just like chew through him without being able to get Deathmark. And it would kind of be in conversation with Gungans for the type of shit I've been doing with like Boomadir, AoE. Yeah, I can't rule out defense, obviously, given my current sensibilities. So I'm forced to respect it. But it's not gonna be my immediate consideration. Like, the only thing I would say is, like, okay, if you're on this and you're talking about, like, Sonicron, and you're just like, okay, well, if I add Sonicron, then I get 100% health and 50% protection and lock defense up. Then I put in Wrecker, and then I get 5% defense per Soldier of Fortune on everyone. Is that anything? Like, fuck it, I don't know, man. Maybe. It's a lot of stats. It's a lot of bulk stats, of course. But it's not very mechanical, right? You're just lopping on stats. And we played against a couple of stall comps with Gungans recently, and I've played against a couple teams that were like, you look at that immediately and you're like, okay, this is like very, very teched against Gungans. Stalling out Gungans doesn't really seem to work, or like they kind of have some inevitability against you. Whereas being able to pressure the generator actively calls me to that. I don't know. This is more durability than we have had. So maybe if you try to strong arm them enough, maybe. Yeah, I am. This is a good enough Soldier of Fortune unique that I'm forced to respect it. I'm not out here banging the drum about it, but yeah. OG Wrecker and New Wrecker could cause locked stealth to hide taunt. But the problem is he's going to pre-taunt anyway, and I'm pretty sure the moment that you gain taunt, you automatically rip off stealth. So that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, going into this kit, I was thinking New Wrecker plus OG Wrecker type shit to leverage just having this character take a bunch of turns. But Omega specifically only gives bonus turns to people in stealth. And so if he gains taunt, and that causes him to lose stealth, this is just a non-starter, right? Like, this clause just breaks immediately. So CG were ahead. They saw the line, and they closed it. Fair play, I guess. We will see how things develop. Boy, it would sure be fucking tragic if this was a skippable part of... What is this? Zeta Omicron? Alright, immediate question. Oh my fucking god. We will see how these abilities level up and if there's a skippable pre-talk clause, I suppose. Boy howdy. Holy fuck. Can you imagine? Couldn't be me. Alright, well, if you're a similar sicko to me, carefully consider your choices tomorrow if you care about the team's performance in GAC. Hope Crosshair feels like a grandmother's level marquee. It's definitely a possibility. Let me put it this way. The team only makes sense if Crosshair is quite good. Like, Batcher and Hunter have enough power budget stripped out that if you're saying, like, okay, this is a 2025 Premier team, we definitely see some power budget in Record. The unique for sure. The abilities are solid. But yeah, it's bottom of the 9th. 2 out. In this metaphor, the old batch exists to replace the outs, but just stick with me here. For new batch versus old batch, is the bottom of the 9th 2 out. Because let me tell you, Fugitive Omega will continue on even if Crosshair is not that good. But I don't think she would mind having Crosshair be good either. You need 0 new teams lower than GM power level. Well, the irony being that Omega Fugitive is already beating GM. So, you know, just aren't on your record. What are you gonna do? Just aren't on your record or fight against the people who are like, spirits should not be in this team. I'm like, yeah, I agree. Anyway, your 65 banners. Alright, I am forsworn to go record a podcast with Tass. So I need to dip. Get ready for that. Cool. I don't have a definitive opinion on the new batch as a 5-man entity just yet. But I think this will be a good, fun addition to the game. A worthy combatant for R9ker. I see them making Omega cooldown reduction bad batch only. I don't know. I don't like the way that it exists right now. It's kind of strong in 3v3. I feel like the power level in 5v5 for synergetic teams is like a lot of teams are just so aggressive. Like teams like Omega Nihilus feel like old school Galaxy Heroes to me, right? Where it's like I'm talking like Thrawn, Shore, Darth Vader, Watt type shit, where it's like, okay, you have 3 slots here dedicated to just setting up a power structure to buy time. But the problem is, something like Annihilus cannot kill stuff like Galactic Legends, right? Even if you could literally annihilate all 4 sides, which I don't even know that you necessarily get there safely either. In 5v5, I think you're just losing fights against most real teams these days. In that case, I don't know. It got reported, like... I think the biggest thing that comes down to me for Omega is, does it create a very weird thing for the dev team in the future where they just have to balance everything around her, and like, maybe it's only a matter of time until an abuse case crops up. So from that perspective, it makes me a little bit nervous. But am I nervous about her right now? I don't think so, actually. Like, a character like Enoch would make me more nervous for his positioning than her current positioning, to be honest. And even then, I think Enoch has only really proven himself mostly in squads like, to the Eternal for the most part. And I think it's fine for Sith Eternal to have a new toy. Maybe a little bit disappointing for, like, Ahsoka matchups in some cases, but it's fine. But yeah, alright. I need to go get ready. Don't know if I'm going to stream tonight. I'll probably do some Marvel Rivals, but we will see. Later. Is JC history out yet? Speaking of, I assume no. Nope.